and welcome to the Forward Onto Dawn podcast, the show about the story and universe of the Halo franchise. This is episode number 40. Now, 40 episodes in the span of 11 years is not exactly the most prodigious track record for a podcast, but we're nothing if not regularly irregular. And we usually convene a podcast to talk about the latest Halo novel or game preview. But this week, we're going to do something a bit different. It's a draft for the Halo Expanded Universe sort of Hall of Fame. Don't know if you've noticed, but the Halo EU is massive. We're at 32 novels, depending on how you count, a dozen comic series, a bunch of other media like podcasts, alternate reality games, and films. So we've gathered a fine panel to talk about their favorites and determine the greatest of all time. I don't know, there's a rocket going off into space, and we can only save a certain number of Halo stuff. I don't know, whatever scenario makes sense as opposed to just arbitrarily drafting things. So our panelists will get an opportunity to choose a work, and then it's off the board. And so yeah, if you all wanted to talk about and pick Halo Nightfall as your top pick, I'm sorry, that's just not possible. Only one person can get Halo Nightfall. We'll go a few rounds and see what happens. Now, to introduce our panel in order of play, as determined originally randomly, and then we changed it around. First up will be the particular community's Penn's Halo, last seen in episode 37, the Shadows of Reach discussion.
Hi, everyone.
Then will be my co-host, Dani.
Hidely hoodly.
Then it shall be me, because I'm an ingracious host, and then it'll be Nakai, Covenant Canon, last seen episode 38.
Hey guys, well, glad to be back.
Yeah, I guess this is your first real episode, because it doesn't count the last time, because you came on late. We magicked you into the recording, the magic of editing. But now you hear it from the beginning. All right, so, Pens, you can start us off. What's your top pick?
Yeah, my top pick is going to be Halsey's Journal. Out of everything in the EU, I mean, we've all talked about it, and if there's one character that just seems to go through the entirety of the Halo universe, it's Catherine Halsey. And the journal that came with Reach just gave tons of insight into her character. Doesn't make her any nicer of a character, but she is probably one of the most well-developed characters I've come across in all of gaming. And just everything about that journal was really well put together, and it just gave tons of insight into her character. So,
and we're getting stuff followed up on it, like the leftover Flash clones featured in Shadows of Reach. To this day, I still think it's kind of a dick move to have Eric Nyland come back to the franchise just to explain and rationalize all the stuff he did to change his story. Especially now, given what we know about the Bungie Microsoft relationship when it came to the novels. But I definitely agree. Yeah. It was in my short list.
And the missing pages part of it was, I'll admit, that drove me nuts when I first got it. I'm like, did I get something that was flawed? What's wrong here? And then I realized that's the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I don't think lots of people knew that they came with pages ripped out. And the idea was that a couple were sent out with unripped pages. And the idea is that, whoever got those would reveal what was on those. And for whatever reason, whoever got them never did. Weren't plugged into the Halo community on the internet or something.
To be fair, you can't really blame an 8-year-old on Christmas Day, Karen. To be fair.
Yeah, that's true. It could have gone the limited edition to some kid who just grabbed the statue and forgot about everything else. So, I mean, now it's been a couple of years, I think. But I think Nyland ended up revealing that what it was. And that it's intriguing. It'll be another thing to see if it ends up showing up later on in something else. That's the thing about the Halo Expanded Universe. You might have to wait a decade, but stuff tends to crop up again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Dani, your pick.
Oh, okay. So, I think the one I'll choose off the top here is going to be Hunt the Truth. You guys remember Hunt the Truth? You remember the wave it sent out?
That was a great audio drama.
Yeah,
That was amazing.
the thing is, Hunt the Truth kickstarted off the Halo 5 marketing campaign. It was a big push. It culminated with media spots, commercials on Super Bowl, and Hunt the Truth was the big meaty um, dish for us to tuck into. And there was a lot there. There was a lot of hype going on with the marketing angle. We were pre-set up, preconditioned to have sort of expectations in mind with the sort of visual imagery that the marketing team were sending out with the the bullets and the Master Chief visor, and this was the sort of tailor crafting into the whole thing. I was sucked in. I wasn't expecting it to be as hard hitting and to personally enjoy it as a media event, as it were. But it was delicious. I think they misstepped actually with the sequel to Hunt the Truth, but that first one was so unexpected, and the quality bar that they hit right out the gate, just it was pitch perfect and tone perfect for what we needed to fit that moment as fans. And I think that was the most successful 343 have been in doing something signaturely theirs. That you can say, well,
Absolutely.
this is something that they've done, and no other company could have done it like this, and they nailed it. You know.
My favorite episode from that was Jackals from season 2. Like it really explored how really scary the jackals can be.
Well, and
Oh, yeah.
in general, we're even now 343 has done a lot better job recently, but we're generally starved for a civilian outlook on the Halo universe. We get some of it in like Smoke and Shadow with Ryan and her crew is, I guess, military adjacent, but this is one of the few times we get a really good look at what it's like being, I mean, he's a traveling journalist and stuff, but he's still much more a regular guy than most people we follow around. And just for me, the most interesting thing was the description of going to Oni headquarters and how basically everyone stays away from it like it's a haunted house, and just giving that kind of idea of how omnipresent the secret police basically is for the UNSC. I think you're right, Danny, in that the second season is a little weaker, but my understanding is basically they were surprised that people liked it so much. They made the second season a bit quicker.
Yeah.
But you got Mark Hamill.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Mark Hamill.
I'm not by any means. I'm not saying the second season's bad by any means. I'm just saying the first season was such a strong blockbuster of a knockout. It was hard to follow up with that sort of consistent quality bar. And I don't fault them for not hitting it. I applaud them for trying. You know what I mean? So I did love the second season, just not as much as the first. The first just nailed it too hard.
The people who were there for the voice actors did a great job. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's like as soon as Hamill opened his mouth, it was like, wait a minute, that's the Joker.
Yep.
He had a really big Joker vibe from Batman the Animated Series, and I was like, how did they get Hamill?
As soon as I heard that for the first time, I was like, why does this person sound so familiar? Then clicked immediately that it was Mark Hamill.
One thing that really surprises me is that over in the West here, just generally speaking, compared to somewhere like Japan has a very big radio drama culture based around their anime, manga, and video games. And we don't really have that over here. It strikes me now, particularly thinking back over COVID and stuff. Why not? Why don't we get our big properties and just do some audio dramas? Like the audiobooks are big here now, and I don't understand why video games like this, like Hunt the Truth, is a perfect encapsulation of what happens when it's done right. So why don't we see more of this? Like, why don't we see more audio content? It's quick. You write a script, you get your voice actors, you can bang it out in a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? There's no drawing, there's no video games involved, there's no big production. It's just a couple of voice actors, a couple of writers, and get that content flowing.
I think that's also one of the things that Hunt the Truth kind of came at the perfect moment, because 2014, 2015 was everyone who hadn't discovered podcasts have you heard of these things called podcasts? Like they had Serial and all that stuff.
Yeah, it pretty much helped boost up the the popularity of podcasts, pretty much.
Yeah, and this was kind of like Halo's entries. Like, we give you something that obviously it's a marketing tie-in, but it stands on its own as a engaging piece of media. And yeah, they have.
Yeah,
It's kind of funny
absolutely.
looking now. I didn't even look at all the credits. So you got Keegan Michael Key was Benjamin Gerard, Kobe Smothers, Jennifer Hale, Troy Baker. So like the obvious video game people, but Kumail Nanjiani, yeah, Laura Bailey, so many people.
And surprisingly, the big brother from iCarly, Spencer, he voiced my Sully.
Jerry Trainer.
I did my little. I knew that guy sounded familiar, and I researched it. I was like, oh shit, it's Spencer from iCarly.
Yeah, the thing is, voice talent can cover a wider base than you might expect, especially because it's a quicker production. You know what I mean? You might get a wider pool of talent that wouldn't be available for, say, traditional video games or traditional animated films.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a fancy studio either. I mean, you see voice actors all the time that are recording in their closet.
Yep.
Yep.
Call out to Lance Reddick, by the way. That guy knows how to work the closet.
Yes, yes, he does.
Yeah, and I mean,
Actually, for Hunter Truth, the one thing that surprised me was when they brought in Mendez. I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like Stacy Keach, and I was like, haven't heard of him in forever, and he shows up in a Halo in a Halo thing. I was like, that's pretty neat.
yeah,
Especially as like one of the most significant Halo characters in recent books.
played
Yep.
by the sergeant from Cheech and Chong films.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
That's how I know him from.
Actually, I remember him from Mike Hammer.
Oh, that's a good. Well, you're aging yourself there, dating yourself badly.
I know.
Yeah, and you even get Bruce Thomas gets a role, which is nice considering otherwise he's just the silent face of mocap of Chief. He gets his voice and for stuff. Yeah, Hunt the Truth, great pick. All right, I guess it's me. So Hunt the Truth and Halsey's Journal are both up on mine. I'm going to pick Halo Evolutions.
Oh,
Ooh, I like that one.
The original anthology, Halo anthology. Well, I guess it's depending if you count the Halo graphic novel. It's the second one, but it's just full of great stuff.
Absolutely.
yeah.
There's
definitely.
the weakest of the story is something like Palace Hotel, and even that, I enjoy. It stinks that they did this weird split volume thing later, and some of the best stuff got added, but only in the second volume, like Wages of Sin. But everything about it's great. It's got, I mean, it's hard to pick my favorite, but I definitely think that the Impossible Life and Possible Death of Preston J. Cole is great, and to this day, I'm still upset that they didn't turn that one into a motion comic. We got a bunch of stuff in the early Halo Waypoint days. We got a bunch of motion comics for a bunch of them. The Mona Lisa, which is great.
The Return.
Oh my god, The Return. That is my number one favorite. Shocker
Yeah,
to
that
no
one-
one.
That one was Midnight on the Heart of Midlothian.
Yeah.
Heart of Midlothian.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh my god, that showed like the real grit and like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like that would really justify the R rating that Halo got in that day if they had like stuff like that.
Wasn't that Frankie's wee story?
Yeah.
Midlothian,
Thank you,
yeah.
sister. Got a Scotsman running around. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, who knew that Frankie guy could write?
And Human Weakness in there was amazing too. That was
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
I think it's hard to find anyone who wouldn't agree that's Karen Travis's best contribution to Halo.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's for the most part like standout story after standout story. And we sort of got a free sequel to it with Halo Fractures. I just want them to do more. I love the anthology
Absolutely.
stuff, especially since it is a way of giving us small stories and characters that couldn't hold up a video game or a novel. Okay, Nakai, it is your turn.
Okay. If I were to say, I would have to say the Halo graphic novel. That is by far like the art style is just amazing. The storytelling was just awesome for all the other like short stories in there. By far, the Voyage of Infinite Succor is honestly my favorite. Like, I just love how it pretty much expanded the lore with the Covenant and pretty much telling the story of how Artas Vadum, aka the commander from Halo 2 and Halo 3, lost his jaw, his left or right jaw? I forget what it
Left
was.
mandibles, I would say.
Left jaws. Okay. Yeah, but it's just great all around. And it actually, in one of those books, one of those stories, it actually introduces Benjamin Giroux from Hunter Truth as I forget who said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's the story's Second Sunrise over New Mombasa, which is also
Yes.
at that point, I think that was the only vague look at civilian life.
Yeah, that was the only story that we ever got with civilian perspective in a Halo media.
Yeah.
Oh, was that? Yeah, that was before Halo 3 and Sadie's story, right?
Yeah.
So
It's definitely you got armor testing in there, so we get Maria introduced,
It was pretty much testing out the armor that Chief would later wear.
which works as an explanation for why it is already beaten up when Chief suits up.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Then
Breaking Quarantine was really good too.
how Johnson escaped the flood was like sort of not really a necessary thing, but it's a really cool, really interestingly illustrated. But along those lines, so there's armor testing, Last Voyage in this Succor, Breaking Quarantine, Second Sunrise over Numbasa, and the other minor thing which ended up playing a role later on was it had and actually is sort of the precursor to like the data drops that they do, or catalog posts on Waypoint, or the Halo Loot Crate stuff, was page 122, which just had like excerpts from Oni agents, and basically was the first place that introduced the idea that Johnson might be an Orion candidate.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Mhm.
That was sort of the precursor to those things. The book sort of kicked off all the other Halo graphic novels. If you didn't have the Halo graphic novel, you might not have had all the other ones, for good and for ill.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the Fractures or Tales from Slith Space or the Escalation comics.
Yeah, or Halo Uprising was the immediate thing. But it was also
Who published that? Was that Marvel that published
Yeah.
it? Was that Marvel that they were publishing with at that time for that?
Yeah, they did the graphic novel.
yeah. And it was, at the time, it was also impressive because it was a critical and commercial success, and usually the video games to comics tie-ins were terrible, and no one bought them because they were terrible. So in that way, it sort of was laying ground. And actually, we just got news recently that it's been out of print for a while, but Dark Horse Comics is going to be releasing a new version in late September 2021. You will be able to grab a new edition. That wraps us one round, so now we'll go back to pens.
Well, considering that you took out about 5 of my picks on my list with choosing evolutions, I'm going to say The Fall of Reach, the novel by Nyland. I mean that's the start of it for me. I mean, I played CE, but it wasn't until I picked up Fall of Reach that I really got interested in the overall story of Halo, and just the backstory with Chief and the rest of Blue Team and all the Spartan 2s, Halsey and Keys, and later finding out that he wrote that in 7 weeks. It just amazes me that that's where it started.
It's astonishing.
No. So, and like I said, and then the story behind that and the efforts to try to get it published it's like you would imagine that would be a novel in and of itself. You couldn't realize that actually happened.
Yeah, I think you'd never get everyone to talk about it, but it would be interesting to do a little dramatical retelling of the early years of Halo. Yeah, there were a lot of stuff going on. Basically created a whole bunch of stuff, and it's amazing how much of his choices and Microsoft's choices, even back then, set up Halo. Eric Trotman was talking about how he implied basically that they created the insurrectionists because Bungie was just going to have a bunch of random ships around because it was cool before the aliens showed up. And Eric Trotman was like, why would the humans have a bunch of warships if they're not fighting anyone? And so they came up with a reason for why they have a bunch of ships in the games.
That, and we really wouldn't have had Halo 3 ODST if it wasn't for that novel either.
Yeah.
Because they were the ones who created the ODSTs.
Yeah, and
the idea of the ODST that Bungie then developed into the game.
Mm-hmm. And apparently they had to be pushed to put them in Halo 2 too as well. So they owe so much to the Fall of Reach. An obvious pick, but a good one. Okay, Dani?
So I think in retrospect, it might have been better had we had a little rule for this discussion that forbade anthologies and collective single pieces. Just because I feel
that's
cheating.
Just a great pick because you get to pick multiple stories.
No, that's the thing. That's the thing. I feel like I'm cheating by having this luxury, but I would nominate Halo Legends just for my own personal bias. I love anime and manga. I love art style. I love that we were able to have a project that showcased Halo in a different light from the perspective of those different directors. And if you've seen other anthologies like the Animatrix, and there's actually a Star Wars anthology coming out this year, which should be freaking amazing. And there's just not enough of it. I was hoping to see another sequel project to Halo Legends, because there's so much potential there, even if the individual stories didn't rock everybody's boats. Let's just say there was potential there. Just animated Halo. It would have been cheaper than a live action show. We could have gotten it out a longer time ago. You know what I mean? So there's so much potential there, even on one-off things. And there was a few directors I wanted to see. One of them passed away in the time afterwards, Satoshi Kon. But there's so many new directors out there that could bring something to the Halo universe that really wouldn't have a niche right now in that media landscape. And something like Halo Legends would give them an opportunity, I think, to bring just a little take to the Halo universe that I think we all appreciate.
Which one's your favorite out of
Legends?
Legends?
You have to pick.
That's the other question.
Oh, come on. Oh, the bit, wasn't it? No. I'm going to go with the stupid one, just because I love the fact that it broke into a different audience. That sort of comedy, manga, anime stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That GIF, those memes from that little thing helped tap Halo into a new audience. And obviously we're sitting here going, who gives a shit about those guys and those children back then? But that's the sort of intermedia marketing that's really important for what Halo's being pitched towards nowadays. It's not just a sci-fi game on Xbox for a bunch of bros, you know what I mean? They want to tap into a wider audience, and there's different ways to doing that. And tapping into that fan base, those people online, as dangerous as that is, I think they were successful, at least tickling their funny bones for a couple of minutes, you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's definitely, it's interesting in that I don't think the Halo things like the Halo graphic novel or Halo Legends would happen now, just because in a lot of ways they feel like products that were a lot more hands-off that Microsoft wouldn't do now, that they would have their hands in it a lot more and a lot more oversight for good and for ill. Whereas, they just let these big Japanese studios do whatever they wanted.
And just for the record, guys, there's one little bit of Legends that justifies the whole fucking thing. Even if the rest of Legends in your eyes is trash and not worth your time, you've seen Origins, right?
Yeah.
Before we had this explosion of content that went into that particular corner of the Halo universe, Origins gave us a really, really meaty first look at a lot of that stuff, the visual imagery, some of that stuff that we were teased at in the games, and it sort of brought that closer to us than anything else in the franchise had before that.
Oh, absolutely.
And we don't know. We can still see if some of that random stuff actually comes to pass in a similar way. We're like, wait, is Chief and Greymon gonna face down? And there's like, wait, this is Cortana's ship. I'm like, what's going on?
And I will point this out right now. The duel is just a masterpiece. Just want to point that out.
Oh yeah.
Like motion watercolor look to it.
And not to mention like the emotion that it had, like, and it tells like from a different perspective, like you said earlier, from, and in this case, like with the Covenant, made them more humanized, which I appreciated and loved.
Yeah. So there's the dual origins, Odd One Out, which is the non-canon one by Toei Animation, the Babysitter, where Shock, the Spartan's a girl, Homecoming, where actually I do remember vividly the trailer, which actually the trailer for Halo Legends is honestly to me better than the thing in total, because ultimately the anime stuff didn't work for me, but the trailer is rocking. The soundtrack for Halo Legends is great.
You did mention the prototype, the mech one.
Yeah.
I love mech. That was Halo mech was just, that's something I didn't expect to exist, but I want more. Oh.
Yeah, and that tied into, was it Halsey's Journal, where they basically had the
prototype.
Yeah, the
Oh,
mech
no,
was like Mark III or whatever.
Actually, yeah, that there was an image in there of that mech. It was like supposed to be a really early development of Mjolnir or powered assault armor. Yeah.
So there was a little tie in there, and stuff from the package I think has shown up later on, little tiny bits. So it's definitely still remembered, the Halo franchise. Oh, also it had before the Foreigner trilogy, it gave us the first indication of ancient humanity, because the Babysitter has them going to these ruins, which are totally like human ruins on this alien world.
Very human ruins, but obviously not human ruins. Yep.
Yeah, but then
Yeah.
they explained that, so it all made sense. Okay, I will pick. If I were being truly mean, since obviously Nakai is going on a clear strategy here, I would try and snipe him, but I'm not going to.
You can snipe me, I don't care.
I'm going to pick Conversations from the Universe. This is the limited edition Halo 2 manual, which came from the Covenant perspective with everything. Also in the manual, they had Conversation of the Universe, which were just short little bits, people around, like from some elites talking about, hey, why are we trying to kill these humans the entire time? And why are the prophets favoring the brutes? Stuff like that. Apparently this was also substantially written by Frankie, so maybe that's one reason I like it. But like we were talking about, a lot of these pieces of media we've chosen were some sort of like breakout into a new corner of the universe or something like that, or a new medium. Conversation in the Universe was one of the few examples of giving us more of those perspectives. And a lot of the stuff obviously couldn't fit in the games, but it was nice to have. And I wish we got more stuff like that. I know game manuals aren't a thing anymore, but it'd be nice to have, right? Nakai?
This is going to be a random one. The loot crates from a few years ago. Those ones were, or at least, okay, let me correct myself. The first wave of the loot crates, those were my favorite also. Those ones I would keep in a capstone also.
As you wish, I will allow you to draft the entire loot crate.
Because those delve so deep in lore, in like even in little documents from all over Halo media, from Halo Renegades, Hunters in the Dark, the Kilo 5 trilogy. It pretty much, those series, like, it really expanded the lore in different measures, which it wasn't really that necessary. The first wave, not the other ones, because they lacked the lore stuff, which, as many of you know, I'm a big lore nerd, and yeah. But I will say this, the loot crates, they did provide us a lot of juicy merch, like, say, for example, a grunt keychain, which that I still have and I will always love. The statues, and yeah, like there's stuff that I still use to this day, like the Noble Team sunglasses. They're just, like I said before, the loot crates, they do expand the universe out from other pieces of lore, um like I said, Halo Renegades, the Fall of Reach, the Kilo 5 trilogy, and so much more. And I think, in terms of, like, I think the casual fans to the heavy duty lore fans could appreciate the loot crates had it continued, and had it been changed back to what it was during the first wave. But yeah, I would say the my favorite of the loot crates has to be the Covenant loot crate, where with the Prophet of Truth statue that we got.
Was that in the second wave?
I
Or was that still in
believe
the
so.
first
I
wave?
believe that was
Yeah.
in the second wave.
I have to say, the lower the loot crate actually really pissed me off. I don't mind loot crates. Like, the idea of buying TAT and getting every month is awesome if you're into it. Like, I have no problem with that. I really had a problem with them putting in that exclusive content and lore into it to incentivize it, because I'm not going to buy a bunch of plastic shit just to get some words in my head, and I don't like this practice.
That's what Reddit was for.
That is actually fair. That it's kind of restricted to people who have to spend their money to get this lore. But in all fairness, people from Halopedia, they've
Yeah,
done a
it's
very
all
good
up
job
there.
in keeping people informed, like giving people the pictures, the documents from the loot crates, just so everyone could get the lore.
Yeah, but if you like buying lore, you like supporting the products, and you're a fucking adult, you want to buy and get the things you want and support it so you can get more into it. So in that case, I ain't buying plastic figures, no matter how awesome they are, and a bunch of t-shirts and tat just to get fucking lore.
I didn't have issues with that, although with the later ones, I think my issue with some of the drops was it felt like this was like...
It felt lazy.
They were just trying to fill something in, is what it felt like. Especially with that last series.
Yeah, I think it just for like especially, let's see, like the series 2 stuff, it's like, all right, like, are you gonna like say Cortana's evil, or is she rampant, or like it just seemed like they were playing to people's attitudes.
It was just trying to find a way of justifying Cortana's actions from Halo 5, pretty much why she went all evil all of a sudden out of nowhere. Like, I just felt like, okay, are we gonna stop talking about Cortana and just get to like into the expanded universe and all that? It's just, I don't know.
It's just one of those things. You made the character choice. Now lay in it. Don't prevaricate around it. Like, well, maybe. There's some really cool art in all of them, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, yeah. Most of the posters that came with it are, when you unroll them, you look on one side, they're beautiful.
Oh my god, especially
really
the
well
one
done.
with the Banished with Atriox. That one was like fantastic.
I hadn't looked at some of these. There's like the weird Funko Pop styled human combat form. It's like kind of horrifying, yet also really cute at the same time. It's funny. Okay. All right, we're back around to pens. We'll do one more round, and then we'll do quick shout-outs, I think.
Okay. I'm going to say Forward Unto Dawn. That was 343's first intro into the live action. It was really well done.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it. Minus the ending that had Fred and Kelly take their helmets off and Chief didn't, but yeah, but that's just, to me, that's kind of a minor
Well,
thing.
Kelly didn't want to keep showing the fact that she had a knee plate glued to her helmet.
And then, and I think the soundtrack for Forward Unto Dawn is really underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I love that soundtrack.
I still have the Axios.
Oh yeah, that is an
I
amazing
still have it
track.
on my phone. I play that all like once in a while, and it's just fucking fantastic. The CGI, the graphics is just phenomenal. It's way better than Nightfall had, in my opinion.
Forward Unto Dawn is a great example of they knew they didn't have a big budget, etc., and so they worked with their limitations, and that was really successful. Whereas Nightfall was more ambitious, but it fell down because it couldn't reach those ambitions.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you don't see the Covenant a lot, but that makes them scarier and creepier, and it makes it into a monster movie, and it's great because it's these kids who have never met aliens before, and that works really well. And it still gives me major points because they kill off the love interest. She doesn't survive.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think to this day, like, it's shocking but also hilarious is that they blow away the teacher with a super combine. She's like, no, Thomas, run away. And she gets super combined and exploded. And that just makes me laugh every single time.
No, I mean, I went into that, as a web series. I really didn't have any expectations to it, and I was utterly blown away. And I think, much like with Hunt the Truth, with the first one versus the second one, it's like, to me, they hit pretty much everything out of the park with that one. And then you had Nightfall, which, I mean, it had its good points. The second stories were always great for Nightfall, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
But it just didn't quite hit the bar that they set with Forward Unto Dawn.
It didn't hit the nail that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think pretty much, well, I don't know, maybe Haruspis would argue that Nightfall's better, but I think most people would agree Forward Unto Dawn.
And he has.
Yeah, and I mean, it was especially, I think Daniel Cudmore as Master Chief especially did a good job. Like, it's one of those things where he wins because he sort of, we're going to have the live action thing, but he broke the, like, what are people going to do when it's not Steve Downes, and like why the 17-year-old doesn't sound like Steve Downes. Like, I'm going to be upset, but they did a really good job with the costume and everything.
Oh yeah.
It worked.
You don't need Steve Downes to be Master Chief. Like, as long as they get like the tone and pretty much the character down, you don't need the voice actor. You just need to keep true to the character. That's why I think they did a really good job with Forward Unto Dawn Master Chief.
Yeah. And obviously it introduced us to the character of Beamish, the janitor.
That was probably one of the more disturbing stories in Halo Fractures.
Wow. Thank you, trivia. Hamish Beamish is currently the only confirmed bisexual in the Halo series. I missed that part in the Fractures anthology.
That's tragic.
Space mop. All right. Dani, your turn.
Are you? Was it 2 pieces? You said. I give my top 2.
Just one more.
No, that's a third. That breaks the rule too.
No, I never said top 2. What are you talking about?
You did. You said 2 pieces of media. That was your explicit instructions. I followed to a letter.
Well, now you're just gonna have to pick one more, Dani.
Okay. There was one I was going to bring up earlier, and it was kind of brought up, but not as a focus. I'm going to pick the Return.
You're going to specifically pick the Return. Fine, I'll allow it. It is weird to think about, like, because we were talking about earlier how Origins was sort of like what's going to happen in the post Halo 3 era, like that entire thing. And Return was also like that it was set super far in the future, and we had no idea what was going on really in the universe in that point. And at this, since I need to double check, but like now we're basically past it in the Halo timeline. So it's kind of funny to think that it was so far away, and now we've lapped it with events after it only took a decade or so.
But The Return is honestly an amazing story.
Yeah.
both as a story within Evolutions and as a motion comic. I just love the imagery.
The only reasons why I liked it is because it's a post-war story. It's from the other side, it's from the enemy side, as it were, and it's also a continuation because when Halo 3 ended, like that was it. Like how do you walk forward a bit and tell a story in that post setting? And I think the Return was a really good template of how you go about that. If you don't want to bring the whole universe with you when you go forward, how do you go forward and tell a story in that post-war setting? And like I think it's still very effective. It's simple. Like it's not trying to tell a massive scale story. It's pretty small scale, but I think that works to its benefit.
And it's worth noting that
definitely
for the people who the mendicant bias needs to come back to Halo fans, that's one of your possible things, because the shipmaster mentions that the example of the monitor that they found on the human outpost looks like an oracle that he once existed in High Charity. Could be talking about 343 Guilty Spark. Could also be talking about mendicant bias. So maybe, yeah. Okay. For my third pick, I will pick Halo Silentium. This was something when we talked about it on the FUDcast way back when. It was one of those things where after I read it, I was like, you know what? If they ended the entire Halo universe with this book, I would be fine, because it did such a good job tying into what we knew, answering like some long simmering questions, like callbacks to things like 343 Guilty Sparks conversation with the Didact, and like if it was your choice, would you do it? Everything like that. It was, I think the Forerunner trilogy was kind of uneven. It was also just so remote in a lot of ways from everything that we knew, for better and ill, but Silentium tied it in. And it's kind of funny to go back to. The pace of it is relentless, and it really fits into the sort of tragic story of the Forerunners, that everything kind of falls to hell at the end, and they're just trying to figure things out. It was a great book, a great end to the trilogy, and it could have been in the alternate universe where, for whatever reason, Microsoft decided it hated money and canceled the series. It would have been a great way to end it on.
Yeah, I mean, it took a bit for me to get used to Greg Bear's writing style, but yeah, especially in Primordium, but Silentium definitely was really good. And the additional audio.
Oh yeah.
After that, which kind of told like the post story, or the reseeding of Earth, was really well done too.
Well, it had like two. It was, I mean, it's one of those things that is annoying if you buy the book and it doesn't come with the entire story.
Yeah.
But I think it ended up having two audio postscripts. One that had the reseeding of everyone, and the trial of mendicant bias. It just tied in really well with everything. And that stuff, speaking of plot threads coming back after almost a decade, a lot of the stuff in Silentium with Path Colonna and stuff, Cathona, turned up in the latest Halo novel. So after all this time, this thing's still matter and come up with resonance. Okay. Nakai, you want to pick one more?
Okay. Now, this is going to come as a shock to no one, but Broken Circle. Absolutely love that novel. Like I said, shocker to no one. This book is just full of interesting perspectives to elites who didn't want to join the Covenant, and those who were it's pretty much a two-sided story for both elites and prophets. Like two different sides of a coin. It really makes both species gray, and also tells pretty much how sensitive the situation was with the founding of the Covenant. And it also shifts to during the events of Halo 2, which is honestly just amazing. I love the story, the writing style.
That was John Shirley.
Ah, yes, John Shirley. Yes, he did a great job with flushing out the characters. I particularly love Usa Zealous. What was that? And Ken Scriabin and his descendant. And just so much other. I can go in all day, but overall, I love the book, and I would carry it with me to my dying breath.
Yeah, it's also the most, if you wanted Bioshock mixed in with your Halo, it's the book for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because John Shirley wrote the Bioshock novel Rapture, and there's a lot of the same kind of things. With
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
The wrecked foreigner installation where half the people have gone crazy.
Oh, yep. I can definitely
Similar vibes.
Definitely see that now, actually.
Yeah.
I always liked the concept of the shield world that would disassemble itself before it went through slipspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that
was really
tied
cool.
in with.
And I love the concept that there were elites who didn't want to join the Covenant.
Oh yeah. Well, you kind of got that in
The Duel and things
the
like
Duel.
that.
Yeah.
But it was it
gives
gives you more.
Yeah, that's true.
information.
Also, that's
But
true.
that novel was the first one I actually got into it deeper, and that was pretty interesting too.
Like I said, both the elites and the prophets made them less one-sided characters, more gray instead of black and white.
Yeah. And we get to go back to the San Shayum homeworld where the guys who got left behind became like weird biotech system shock people.
Yeah, and there's actually living plants that are that they actually ride living plants.
Yeah, it was super cool. It's weird and bizarre and stuff that we don't normally get in Halo.
Like really alien world, pretty much.
And it's got a whole Mars needs women thing going on too. It's an interesting subplot. High Charity needs females. So now we've picked our favorite, and now in honor of Dani, the spite round, where instead of saving, treasuring for generations, we instead load up a capsule with a piece of Halo media that we want to just erase from time, shoot into the sun, and don't have it exist anymore. If the Halo universe would be better off. And I guess I'm going to be nice to Dani further and say that you can't get rid of something someone mentioned, so I cannot eject Halo Legends into the sun in this case.
That's fair.
But what if it was like a story within Halo Legends?
I'll allow that. Since Dani picked a story in Evolutions, I'll allow you. If you want to get rid of a single story from Halo Legends, you can. All right, Pens, you want to go first?
I think if there is one thing that I just want to get rid of, it's mainly because of it ended up being like a focal point for everyone's dislike of Halo 5. I think it was the two commercials that had I can't remember what the title was, but essentially you had Locke and then you have Chief both talking, and they came across each other at the foot of a Master Chief statue.
Oh yeah.
That's like, if there's anything, I mean, I generally don't dislike, like, to the point where I want it gone, anything in any genre that I really enjoy. But
well, you clearly can't be a Star Wars fan, so
yeah. I actually never was a big Star Wars fan until much, much later. I never saw the movies originally when it came out, and I'm old enough to have seen them when they originally
well, that's
came
why
out.
you're so nice and well adjusted. This explains everything.
My wife and my parents would disagree with you on that, but thank you. But yeah, I'd probably say that those two commercial spots are definitely something I'd rather didn't exist.
Yeah.
It seemed to solidify the idea, we're going into Halo 5 with this story, and then it totally wasn't.
I think you bring up a good point too, that I think more than the Hunt the Truth podcast, it was the other marketing that did a disservice to the game in terms of implying the level of G-Flock conflict and how much you're going to be chasing after each other.
Yeah.
Which was only condensed into one cutscene, and then nope,
it was like
we're allies now. We got to help
thread
each other.
thread for 2 missions, and then a cutscene, and then
Yeah.
So all right, that's an interesting pick. I would just broaden that to say the what's it like, Conquering Hero? I forget what the specific ad was.
I think that was the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good pick. Okay, Danny.
That pick was extraordinarily fucking good because it was top of my salt list because it was enough to drive me away from a lot of the franchise. Actually, I was really particularly bitter. This is terrible. Like, this is not. You're literally selling me a different experience. You know what I mean? It was very
Yeah.
manipulative, and I just didn't feel like this is what I wanted for my money. You know what I mean? Just as a customer, this is not what I wanted to pay for, but this is what I got. It's not that it was a bad game in the end either. It was just the combination of stuff. But so with that option off the table, guys, I will present to you a very selfish choice here. It's very simple, right? So I'll pitch it for you, right? Imagine a new game, right? A new game, a whole fucking game, a whole new game, right? And it's set around the events of Halo 1, and it draws, right? Let's calm down. It draws from the EU. It sounds awesome, right? A new game, drawing from the EU, set during Halo 1. How about we don't let you ever fucking play it because it's exclusive to some stupid chain in a different country? Fireteam Raven, I hate. It's not because it's bad. It's not because it is bad. I hate that it exists the way it does because I can't play it. How darely make a Halo game I can't play? That is fundamentally against me. You know?
I didn't realize I didn't realize you couldn't play that.
I've never played. I haven't even smelt the game. I haven't even smelt someone who's played the game. Even that's how badly in Fireteam Raven Droughtland that I exist in, and I probably won't get a chance to play it anytime soon. And I won't, because even if I do, like when I'm 80 and someone finally offers me a chance, I will smash it to bits in my old crippled hands. You know, because that's how much spite I feel toward that thing existing right now.
The plastic itself, the plastic gun, will just disintegrate in your hand. Go.
Now, some of you guys, I understand, may have had an opportunity to play it, and I hope you enjoyed it because it sounds awesome. And it really sucks that as a Halo fan who likes playing video games, I can't play a Halo video game because, you know?
You know, Danny, I was going to say that shouldn't count because we said non-video game things, but A, it's enough of a spin-off, and B, it basically is the video game tie-in to the Halo of the Flood. So I'll allow your spite. I recognize your spite.
Thank you.
It's justified, yeah.
The chair recognizes Danny's upset nature. All right. Had some picks, but I think going along with, to piggyback on a pick that was made earlier, Halo the graphic novel. I think it's overall okay. I like some stuff in it. I don't like other stuff. But if you had asked me back then, hey, what's the follow-up for the Halo graphic novel going to be? I would not have picked, it's going to be a thoroughly mediocre 4-issue series to explain the gap between Halo 2 and Halo 3, and the final issue won't come out until more than 2 years after the game. And that is Halo Uprising. It's just really, aside from it's got the death of Ackerson and he goes out in a slightly heroic way, other than that, there's nothing that interesting in this. It's a bunch of people running around. It's Chief running around fighting some guys. I mean, if you really wanted to see him stick a brute up the nether regions with a plasma grenade, you got that in this. But for everyone else, it was just a waste of time and money. And I cannot believe that they actually made it. They made a hardcover version of this in 2009, and then they made an oversized collection in 2013. So if 4 or 5 years after the series came out, you wanted a large, well, just perfect example of like, oh, I want a large format of this kind of bad art, you could get that. And it's just, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the worst Halo comic, but it's definitely got the least redeeming value to it. All right, Nakai, you get to close it out.
Okay, so I was originally going to say odd one out, but after thinking it over, nope. The one that deserves to be lodged into the f***ing sun is the Fall of Reach animated series.
Oh, boy.
That f***ing thing, it did great disservice to the freaking novel.
No, I was going to say, I mean, the one scene where he fights the ODSTs is the one that always drives me nuts.
Looked like he was a psychopath. No.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. It was when it made him look like he was a psycho.
Yeah.
Like, honestly. And
But it looked cool, right? It looked cool, right? It had that going for it.
No, it did not look cool.
I'll also mention this, and I know this might be a bit of a nitpick on my part, but having elites in the Covenant cruiser where Sam dies, no, it was composed of jackals, not elites, not grunts. No, it pretty much ignored the book at all. It was just trying to show off, there's blue team, just in case. It was a fine for establishing newcomers into the Halo series who don't really know blue team and all that are coming to Halo 5. But still, man, like, if you're gonna do it like that, just at least be loyal to the source material.
Well, it was loyal to the source material because, like the source material, Reach doesn't really fall much in the book, and it definitely doesn't fall in the live action.
Like, have it like more Reach in it. At least the book had more Reach in it.
Yeah.
Like, but like there was only one like little scene where Reach was in it. Like, that was it. Like 10 minutes, nothing, or not even 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
It was mainly their training pieces that were in there.
Yeah, and that was like I said, it was only 5 minutes long.
Well, see, I would disagree with you only for the reason that I love the soundtrack to it.
Oh, no. Don't get me wrong. The soundtrack is amazing.
But if we get rid of it, I don't get the soundtrack. Done by...
Like, without the soundtrack, that's the only redeeming quality is the soundtrack and the animation. The animation was good.
Yeah, I think, like Uprising, like the most damning thing you can say was that it was unnecessary. It didn't really do a great job of introducing Blue Team. It wasn't a good adaptation. We'd already had the Marvel Comics adaptation of it, and then it had to be an adaptation. It added issues that weren't there before. It's not like Fall of Reach doesn't have canonical issues, but they added more. It's unfortunate.
I mean, like I said, it was there to introduce new players in, which is something that I think 343 does need to figure out how they're going to do. Especially if you want people to get invested in the universe, they have to find a way to hook people to get them in, to introduce the characters and bring them up to speed without having to read 32 novels or, have to go back and play all the games again. You want them to do that eventually, of course, but there needs to be a way to bring them in. And I think that first attempt, I think, just wasn't all that good.
Yeah, to be very kind to the... I mean, very kind. That's very kind description.
Yes. Well, I mean, yours is probably more accurate. It's just,
Yeah. All right. So, I guess before we go, if there's any, to bring out your dead, if there's any media you want to bring up briefly before we go that should be talked about. The one I did want to mention were Renegades, because I think like Silentium, it was another great, like, ties in a bunch of Halo stuff that we'd been waiting on a long time and did it really well. And then Halo Mythos.
Oh my
which
God,
gives us some...
that was a masterpiece. If there was any Halo Bible, Mythos would be it.
Which, in terms of I mean, obviously, no random person is just going to buy this giant, oversized coffee table book to learn about the Halo universe, but it's probably the best entry into it. And even for longtime fans, it gave us some great art that finally showed stuff that people had only been thinking about and had giving a real concrete look at stuff that it was only described in the novels and stuff. It's great.
I'm gonna say this right now. Halo Bloodlines, that is the most underrated Halo comic or graphic novel, I would say, of all time. That one's like, the art is just so well done. Black Team is great. I love the Covenant side with Thawne and Ref. It was such a good novel, and the way they freaking the cliffhanger was just amazing in the end of the book.
And then they were murdered.
Halo Escalation did great disservice to the Black Team when they were just killed off randomly.
Yeah, 343 did them dirty on that one. I mean,
I think my favorite part about that was they still left them in the original Mark 6 for their death. Like, they don't even get like the little Gen 2 hand wave.
Well, and Black Team is frankly dysfunctional as hell too, which, you see, like the Spartan 2 super soldiers, you don't think that, but they just, in that novel, it's like, wow, this is a really dysfunctional team that somehow still works together.
Well, I think that might be one of the reasons, honestly, that 343 got rid of them, because the whole, especially with the rest of the Spartans beat the crap out of someone to the point she lost her eye, and like they were having a relationship and stuff, like they didn't want to deal with that. I don't know.
I can understand that, but I mean, there had to have been a better way to send them off. There had to have been a better way.
Yeah. It's, if you cared about those characters, that was definitely not a great way to see them go.
Yeah.
Although a tie-in to that is that actually by Frankie, Saint's Testimony.
Ooh, yeah.
I think is a really, really good short story. I think, was that released as an
It was
novel?
released as a separate thing, and then
Yeah, it definitely was included in Fractures, but I mean, just the whole thing of it, where you had her essentially saying, don't don't kill me, and it ended up being Roland and Black Box that had manufactured the whole thing. I just thought it was a really interesting thing. It was a unique story and a unique way to tell it. I definitely think, if you're looking for something, that's definitely something worth reading and reading again too.
Yeah, it's really, for a short story, it gets a lot in there. Well, if we're gonna, because we didn't pick Halo Fractures, the other short story anthology, I would pick out, if I had to single one there that I really liked, Defender of the Storm, where we get to follow the life of the adequate observer, the mediocre Forerunner. Like, we spend all this time with the amazing guys building like this stuff, and instead we follow like the basic grunt guy who is okay at his job, and he ends up having this own little side story that doesn't matter at all to the wider Halo universe, but it's really entertaining, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, well, thanks Pens and Nakai for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah,
for real.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
All right,
appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so that wraps up this episode of the Forward Unto Dawn podcast. Show notes and links for this episode, as well as articles and more, can be found on our website, forwarduntodawn.com. You can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Google Play, if that still exists, Spotify, or Stitcher. Check out our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/forwarduntodawn. You can check out Kai's stuff there at Covenant Canon. And you can follow us on Twitter for updates to all our content by following the handle @ForwardDawn. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.